There is a truth about healthcare system that nobody warns us about. A truth that sits quietly behind every clinic visit, every script refill, and every blood draw. What the system measures is what the system prioritizes, and what the system prioritizes is what becomes that which we are told to care about. But today, we step out of that frame. We start naming what we need to measure, because thriving demands its own metrics, and many of these metrics the system will never give us. Welcome to Unmasked and Thriving. I am TD and I am your host. Today's episode, Metrics of the Soul. What we measure, we become. Let's begin with what we are measured by. CD4 count, viral load, adherence, retention in care, risks categories, and life expectancy. These numbers dominate our lives. These numbers are what funders ask for. These numbers clinics chase. These numbers politicians brag about. But let me ask you, where in any of that do they measure your joy? Where do they measure your dignity? Where do they measure your spirit, your community, and your capacity to dream again? There is no line on that report for recovered my self-worth, stopped blaming myself, found a reason to wake up, started laughing again, and believed I am lovable. The reasons? Because these metrics don't win grants, they don't fit spreadsheets, they don't sit neatly in a donor's PowerPoint. But these are the metrics that determine if we are alive on the inside, not just medically. Here's a rhythmic call and the response we must give. Biomedical says CD4 count. We ought to say, can I still count on joy when no one's watching? Biomedical says viral load. We should say, what's the load on my soul and who helps me carry it? Biomedical says adherence. We must say, am I true to myself? Not just the meds. Biomedical says retention in care. We should say, who is retaining me when the system can't hold the whole of me, especially emotionally? Biomedical says life expectancy. We must say, do I expect to live or just expect to survive? Biomedical says risk profile. We ought to say, what about my resilience profile, my courage profile, and my hope profile? Biomedical says testing uptake. We must say, how often do I share my truth without fear? How often am I met with compassion? Lastly, biomedical says viral suppression. We must say, what about emotional expression? Why must my feelings be suppressed so the virus can be controlled? You feel the difference? You sense the shift? One system wants your numbers. The other wants your wholeness. That's where we ought to be. Here's the truth that many don't want to admit. The biomedical system was never built for our wholeness. It was built for our compliance. It tracks us as patients, cases, statistics, success rates, and treatment outcomes. The system cares about what we cost and what we contribute, not necessarily about who we are becoming. And because it does not measure wholeness, it cannot produce wholeness. This is why people with excellent lives still feel emotionally broken. This is why people who are undetectable still feel invisible. And this is why people who are healthy on paper still die inside. We were never meant to shrink our humanity to 6 indicators. So where do our metrics come from? The ones I just told you about? If the system won't measure that what matters, then we must develop our own metrics. Where do these come from? They come from our communities, from support groups, church circles, safe spaces, healing circles. They come from spaces where the question is not, how's your viral load, but how's your heart? They come from the stories we tell. Every testimony is a data point of healing. Every survival is a statistic of resilience. Every truth shared is a metric of liberation. These metrics that I just told you about come from art, song, poetry, podcasts. Culture carries memory. Culture carries metrics. Culture carries what clinics cannot count. These metrics I just developed come from our own tongues. We name what matters. We define what thriving means. We create the language the world has refused to invent. These metrics come from policy pressure. We push for mental health indicators in programs, for dignity to be tracked, trauma to be recognized, joy to be measured, and thriving to be included. Imagine walking into a clinic and being asked, who held your space for you this week? What brought you joy this week? Where did you feel most like yourself? What dream have you revisited lately? How can we help restore your hope? Imagine a health system that measured your peace, your purpose, your community connection. A system that measures your confidence, your ability to thrive in relationships, your sense of belonging, your ability to rest. Imagine that being printed next to your viral load. Imagine that being included in national reporting. Imagine that being funded. We start today, here, with a declaration. We refuse to be reduced to viral loads. We are keepers of fires, builders of meaning, carriers of truth. We will measure what makes us whole. To every listener, start your own metrics today. Write them down. Name them, live by them, share them, make them visible, because what we measure, we honor. What we honor, we protect. And what we protect, we become. And we, the people, were never created to merely survive. We were created to shine, to build, to heal, to roar, to lead, and to thrive. And our metrics, they will tell the story that biomedical numbers never could. You've been listening to Unmasked and Thriving, a space where data meets dignity, science meets soul, and metrics finally meet meaning. Until next year, 2026, measure what matters and watch your life transform.
Thanks for joining us on Unmasked and Thriving. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone carrying silent grief or sacred fire. Subscribe, review. Come back next week. Come walk with us in the abundance, authority, and victory of eternal life.